Hi, this is Roger. Thanks for dropping by. Sunday morning chat today is going to be totally random. I'm going to make it up as I go along. But the seasons are changing. That's the thing I'm noticing most. If you look now, the sun has just come round. It's halfway across the grow room. It hasn't completely got round yet, but it's coming round. And the thing I've noticed about this new shade netting is because the stripes are horizontal and not vertical, which is the normal way for hanging it or using it, it's letting a fair bit of light through, which it wasn't doing earlier in the year when the sun was high. And this is good, because obviously our days are getting shorter. The number of decent sunny days will get less, and has been. Last 2 days have been dull, hardly any sun. Hydrofogger hasn't come on for ages, and we've just had 2 cold nights. I don't know what we went down to last night, but I'd say probably 16 or 17, if this thing's working properly. Let's put it back where it goes. Yeah, see, I've only had a max of 26, so that's dropped down from the 29-30 for a start. We went down to 16. Yeah, that's not too bad. But you notice the 2 levels of humidity. Yeah, I've had a high of 82. This thing works back to front, because when you read the max, obviously you've got your max temperature and your max humidity, but they're at opposite ends. The max temperature would have been during the day. The max humidity is at night when the temperature drops. And then on this reading it's the other way round. So that's the minimum temperature, which would be during the night, but the minimum humidity would be during the day. So I've only just gone down below 70%. So this is now good. This is what I want. I'd be happy with those readings permanently. But you do what you can. That's all we can ever do. But if you look at the moment where the sun is, I've got plants on lower shelves that are now in dappled sunlight. Well, when the sun was higher up in the sky, all these plants up here would have shaded those lower shelves. So even in here, I'm getting light changes. As the sun drops down, it's now getting to places that it didn't used to get. Now, in the main, that's not a problem, simply because we've got shorter days. So increasing the light level for a shorter amount of time is good. Yeah, I'm appreciating it. I'm not knocking it. This is good stuff. What else was I going to say? Yeah, if you're growing in your house, now's the time that the sun's going to get through your windows into places where it didn't get for the last couple of months, 3 or even 4 months. It's dropping lower. As it gets lower, it will shine deeper into those windows and could be hitting things that you haven't noticed. So keep your eye on the sun, and it will be especially noticeable if you get a long period of dull days, yeah, or rain or anything like that. You get quite a long period like that, and then you get a sunny day, you'll notice it's getting to places it didn't used to get to. I've just watered all my holy clay pots. I've got the mounts still to do, so I have got watering to do today. What else? Oh yes, yesterday was an unusual day. Burnham's were at a local garden centre. They'd set up their sales tables, which Arthur was manning. It wasn't exactly busy, but it wasn't an orchid show, it was an orchid day. There is a difference. And the advertising was probably minimal. I don't know. I know Burnham's advertised it well, but it's a matter of who follows Burnham's on their website that lives near enough to be able to get there for the day. But because Bournemouth Orchid Society support Burnham's in quite a big way, they come to our shows, put on a good display, sell plants. We've been friends with the nursery for donkey's years as an Orchid Society, even long before it was in the site it's at now. So a few Orchid Society members turned up to show support and everything, and I set off for the day, Had a chat with Arthur before it sort of started getting busy and he needed to actually do some work instead of just standing around chatting, which he was doing when I got there. But several Orchid Society members turned up and had a chat with those. And Sara was shut away in a room for a lot of the day because she was doing an organised talk and potting demos, repotting people's plants and all stuff like that, which people paid to go into, which I think is fair enough when you're getting a specialist giving a talk, you know. So it's a long way for them to come, but for me it was just up the road. I said to Arthur I could have nearly walked it. Not really, but yeah, just about 7-8 miles from home, so just up the road. And one of my friends at the Orchid Society bought me a nice coffee and a cake. Lovely piece of cake, like my cake. It's a strange breakfast because I hadn't had any before I left, but yeah, we push the boat out sometimes. And that particular friend has his own laboratory set up. He produces his own plants from seed and in some cases his own hybrids. He's sort of specialised in Paphiopedilums, fair enough, but he does do other things. So I had quite a long chat to him about this little beauty and what I could do about it. And the first thing we discussed was doing a selfie, self-pollinating one of the blooms from its own pollen. And he just looked at me and he said, no, you don't want to do that. He said, when you get a hybrid like that, with sort of two species going into it, if you do a self-pollination, the offspring are highly liable to bring out the worst traits in those two rather than the best. That's what it's all about. You produce hundreds of seedlings and none of them may be as good as the original because it's a hybrid. Yeah, you might get a special one or two, you might get none. So he said, I wouldn't do that. He said, if you're going to produce some seed, find another species, a separate plant, separate species, or if you can, another species that's already included in that hybrid and bring it back, if you see what I mean. So there would only be two choices then, obviously the Broughtonia and the Laelia. But Laelia rubescens is around, so it might be possible to actually find somebody who's got that in flower and you know, I could take some pollen and bring it back to this one and produce a seed pod. But we discussed it and he'd be quite happy to have a go with the seed pod and see what he can do. And the rules are, he does the whole thing for free and you get some of the plants and he keeps the rest to sell on. That's how he funds his hobby, basically, by selling plants. So I'd be happy for that. I mean, I don't want dozens and dozens of the same plant, quite honestly. So that sounded like a good arrangement. And the other thing he reminded me is that orchid pollen will actually store in the fridge for several months and still be viable. So the plant in question to make a hybrid or a cross, it doesn't necessarily have to be in bloom at exactly the same time. But it would need to be in bloom either at the same time or before, not after, obviously, or it's not going to work. So it's still a plan. It's still being thought of. Yeah. So I'll continue thinking about it, but the circumstances have got to come right for me to enable to do it. And at the end of the day, you can still get a non-viable pod that's just got non-viable seed in it. So you try it and it just doesn't germinate. So it's all a bit hit and miss. But good game for the future, not for now. I'm not sure I've got another Cattleya type that would be suitable to introduce to this as a cross, because what I'd like to get is a Cattleya type that's got a lot more purple in it. Preferably a Laelia. If I could get my purpurata to bloom, that would be a good candidate to chuck that amount of purple into that. This plant would dwarf it down as one of the parents. The purpurata would increase its size, so it would probably end up being a larger plant. somewhere between the two. That's what normally happens, but not a giant like the purpurata is. So that could be possible. And that would introduce a lot more purple in there, and also would increase the bloom size, theoretically, because sometimes these things just don't do what you expect them to do. But I haven't even got the purpurata to bloom yet. My Laelia anceps, that would be a good candidate to slot in with this one. But again, it's a bit of a giant of a plant compared with this little nice compact plant. But I'm thinking on it. Whether I can do it from one of my own plants, I don't know. That would be the best thing, for two of my own plants to go in, you know, to the cross. That would be brilliant. But these are thoughts, plans. They may never happen. We shall see. Anyway, so I was at this garden centre yesterday with Burnham's, with all their plants for sale. Oh, and I'll put the camera down and show you what I got. So I had to put the camera down for some time because I couldn't stop giggling. I know what you're all expecting now. You're all expecting me to swing the camera around and show you the orchids that I bought. No, this is me not buying orchids properly. In other words, doing what I said I was going to do. They didn't have anything of interest to me, quite honestly. So they had some live sphagnum moss, and this is New Zealand sphagnum moss, so it's not our native species, and should be far more suitable to use with orchids than the stuff I've got. So it's alive now, and I intend keeping it alive. And because it's New Zealand sphagnum, I'm going to have a go at putting some of these in some trays that hold water, possibly with a bit of peat in the bottom or something like that, just to keep it a bit more acidic. And I'm going to try growing it in here, in the grow room, because the stuff I've tried growing out in the garden, basically the birds just keep taking it away with them for their nests, so I don't end up with much, and they throw it all over the floor as well. And if I don't notice, it just dries out and dies, obviously. And I finally got some clay pots. A long time ago I bought the drill bits, the diamond cutters, to make holes in clay pots to make them into holy clay pots. But I noticed at the garden centre they had some nice looking clay pots at incredibly reasonable prices. Now, that's the first time that's happened. I've come across these half pots, shallow pots, several times in my travels, but not at prices I'm prepared to pay. So I got 3 of the smaller ones, I got 3 medium ones, a little bit more expensive, but still pretty cheap. And then I got 3 of those, and I got a couple of giant ones just in case I might need them. Now the price went up quite a bit for that, but $2.50 for a clay pot that size is pretty good stuff. They are allegedly frost-proof. I don't intend putting that to the test in my grow room unless a hell of a mistake happens. So at some point in the future, I won't say soon, but at some point we'll have a go at cutting some holes in this, which I will film and make a fool of myself, because chances are I will break a couple, or 1 or 2, probably the first one, as I try and get the hang of it. But I've always said it's got to be worth a try. I've seen others do it successfully. I know Oliver had a go at it and spent half the time trying to hold the pot still and the drill still, and try not to drill a hole in his leg at the same time. But we'll give that a go. And now I know where they are. That's why I didn't really buy that many, on the grounds that I would imagine that's part of their stock. So they're just always going to be there, and it's just up the road. So if I need more, I can go and get some. So there we go. So that's what I bought. Some live sphagnum and yeah, some clay pots to make holes in the future. We will give that a go. As I said, I got 3 different sizes. I got a nice small one, which should make suitable size holes in a pot that size. Yeah, that should work. So I got a small, medium and large drill bit to go with my small, medium and large pots. So that's what I was up to yesterday. No orchids, sorry for messing you about. I just thought I'd play a joke. I'm sure you were all expecting a nice shiny new orchid or 2, especially as there were orchids for sale, but not anything I wanted, not that day, not, you know, maybe another time. So I'm having a think about the 2 new ones. This one here that came from the Welsh Orchid Festival. When we had a look at what was in the pot, I teased out an awful lot of the media, and that's how it's going to stay for a while. So a lot of the roots are now bare. I mean, I've just watered it, so it's probably dripping everywhere. But, you know, that's how it's going to stay for a bit. And if I see some root activity, then I will get it in a holy clay pot, probably in the one it's sat in to keep it upright. And the Laelia, we teased out quite a bit of that coconut shell, got a fair bit of it off. So I have got some bare roots now, so it isn't going to stay soggy anymore. And at the moment it's still just sat in its net pot and then inside another pot to keep it upright. I'm going to change the black pot that it's sat in for a clay pot to help it dry quicker. Yeah, the clay will absorb moisture and then evaporate, whereas a plastic pot just doesn't do that. I need that to have a fast wet dry cycle. I need to look after that one. Never going to see it again, I doubt. So yeah, that's what's going on. So relatively short one today. I've got no new blooms as such. The Miltonia is opening up a few more blooms now, slowly but surely. Just starting to push a few more out. I managed to knock one off last time I watered it. Just opened as well. So we lost one on that spike. This little spike's opened one, and we've got two out here. So we've got plenty more blooms to come on that one. That's Miltonia castanea, which is a natural hybrid apparently. Although I'm not going to ever be in a place where it grows to actually see it a natural hybrid in the wild, am I? I did wonder what that would do if I included that in the cross, but I'd worry that if that lip became dominant, putting those colours in with that delicate coloration would not work. To me it would probably spoil it. All I want to do if I'm going to attempt a cross is get a deeper purple shade into that, possibly increase the bloom size, and still try and keep a reasonably compact plant. That's the goal. So I may never achieve it and it may never happen. I know a good one that would go in with that is that beastie up there, Make-A. It's got all the right colours. Yeah, and a relatively compact plant, but I'd be including more Brassivola into the cross, if it's still called that. If it's no longer Brassivola and it's been reclassified as a Laelia something or other, it's implying there's an amount of Laelia in it, which would make it a lot more compatible. But that would introduce the right colours and possibly introduce a bit of spotting on the petals and sepals. That may or may not be a good thing. But it's all hit and miss. You know, you look at the pictures of what's gone into a cross and cross your fingers, literally, because you might not get anything like what you expect. It really is a hit and miss game. I'm sure the people that have been doing it for 50 years get quite good at anticipating what they're about to produce, but it's still never certain, never certain. So watch the change in the seasons. It could have a dramatic effect on what's going on. Those people out in places like this that are exposed to the outside world and greenhouses and places like that, watch your night temperatures. You know, we've just had a cold one. I don't know what it went down to outside, but if it got down to 16 here, I would say it was below 10 outside last night, possibly down 8, 9 degrees. Well, that's a lot different to sort of 17, 18, isn't it? Yeah, so watch your night temperatures if you've got exposure, and if you're growing outside, you really watch your night temperatures. You can have a dramatic effect just in one night. Get too cold. So keep your eye on things, and yeah, happy growing. Thanks for dropping by, and see you next time. Bye for now.